Hey there, Josh here from Squibler. Let's talk about writing good supporting characters. Sometimes behind the lights and sometimes so underrated. However, they carry the weight of the stories and make them more interesting. They can be shy, serious, funny, or obnoxious, but they always do their job. The secondary characters are a fundamental part of every story. And in this video, I'll go ahead and tell you everything you need to know about them. The characters are an essential element in any good story. However, stories are not composed solely of main characters, protagonists, and antagonists. Supporting characters bring a lot of literary interest to your stories. And knowing how to write them is something you must master to become a great writer. So grab a pencil and a paper and get ready to take some notes here, because we're about to go ahead and get started. First off, what is a supporting character? Supporting characters play a role in your protagonist's life. These characters do not have the same importance as the main ones, and they have fewer appearances than the protagonist. However, they still have their own personality, development, story arcs, and subplots. Although writers don't build their stories around supporting characters, they do use them to enrich their worlds. And the supporting characters can be anyone who interacts with the protagonist throughout the story, but whose interaction represents a certain level of importance for the protagonist's development or that supporting character. Like the main characters, the supporting characters cannot impact the plot or set it in motion. Remember that only the protagonist can do that. The supporting characters can be the protagonist's friends, neighbors, relatives, teachers, and more. In fact, many writers take inspiration from the real world to create good supporting characters. An excellent supporting character will have well-defined personality traits, credible background, and they must be interesting. If a supporting character meets this criteria, they'll shine in their own light, reaching the same level as protagonist to the reader's liking.
Questo è un vecchio amico mio, Colonnello Hans Landa della SS.
Buongiorno.
Signori, è un piacere. Gli amici della vedetta ammirata da tutti noi, questa gemma propria della nostra cultura, saranno naturalmente accolti sotto la mia protezione per la durata del loro soggiorno.
Grazie.
It's important that you know how to differentiate between the main characters, protagonists, antagonists, villains, and secondary characters. And if you haven't already done so, I invite you to watch some of the other videos on our channel to learn about all the different types of characters so you have a good understanding of the ecosystem. Now let's go ahead and do a quick recap of what we've covered so far. The supporting characters play a role in the life of your protagonists. Their interactions help the development of both characters. They cannot set the plot in motion, but are impacted by it. They're usually based on real life people, and they must be interesting. And they should have a credible background and well-defined personality traits. The differences between the main characters and supporting characters is important to know. If you're just starting in writing, you may have a hard time differentiating your supporting characters from your main characters. And this is normal, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. Remember that even the best writers started somewhere just like you. And there are notable differences between the supporting and main characters. The first and most obvious is importance. The supporting characters are never as important as the main ones. As a writer, you must prioritize your main characters and protagonists above all else. In this way, you will not invest as much time and dedication into your supporting characters. This doesn't mean that you leave your supporting characters aside. As I said before, they add interest to your story and help you develop your protagonist better. You can even achieve great results with your supporting characters and make the audience love them. But always make it clear that they are not as important in the world of your story as your protagonists. And interestingly, the supporting characters are not guided by the same rules as the protagonists in terms of plot and development. For example, while the main characters must have a reason to justify their actions, the supporting characters do not. This is a plus point for the supporting characters, allowing them three-dimensional developments and participating in unique subplots that are often almost as interesting as the protagonist. Also, the writer has much more creative freedom with the supporting characters. Great writers like Lawrence McNeil and Lewis Carroll made their fascination with writing supporting characters. Great classics of universal literature have been founded on supporting characters that cross the pages and steal readers' hearts and imagination. Another critical difference is that the supporting characters depend mainly on the protagonist, while the main characters can interact with the plot and their own subplots. The supporting characters ultimately need the protagonist to set their story arcs and development in motion.
You heard Marsalis?
threw Tony Rockihara out of a 4-story window for giving me a foot massage?
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe that?
Well, I mean, at the time I was told it sounded reasonable.
Marsalis throwing Tony out of a 4-story window for massaging my feet seem reasonable?
No, it seemed excessive, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I mean, I understand that Marcellus is very, very protective of you.
A husband being protective of his wife is one thing. A husband almost killing another man for touching his wife's feet is something else.
But did it happen?
Only thing Antoine ever touched of mine was my hand when he shook it. At my wedding.
Really?
Truth is, nobody knows why Marsalis threw Tony out of that 4-story window except Marsalis and Tony. When you little scamps get together, you're worse than a sewing circle.
You must learn to differentiate the secondary characters from the main ones. In this way, you will write better and your stories will be of higher quality. Basic elements of an excellent supporting character are also important to understand, and the main characters cannot carry the total weight of the story. And the first one is that the main characters cannot carry the total weight of the story. They must rely on other, less important, but at the same time useful characters. That's where the supporting characters come into play. But readers should be able to remember your supporting characters. They must be able to love them or hate them. These characters must be able to influence your protagonist and their story. But how can you do that? There are 3 essential elements that every good supporting character should have. When you write supporting characters, you can create great characters that add interest to your story if you take these 3 into account. So one is give them their own goals. Although the story is about your protagonist, it does not mean that the world always revolves around that character. Things happen and those things can be related to your supporting characters. So again, make sure to give your supporting characters their own goals and give them a life that they can live behind the scenes. Are they married? Do they hate their jobs? What do they hope to get out of life? The supporting characters do not have to be gray and boring. Remember that they feel and live in the same way as your protagonist. Imagine yourself as the protagonist. Surely you have friends, acquaintances, maybe coworkers, schoolmates, and more. The same should happen in your stories. And 2, you have speech patterns. Sometimes more than what they say is how they say it. Your supporting characters can and should have their own speech patterns. Are they so shy that they speak in whispers? Or are they always in a state of hype, so they quickly spit out their words? Master Yoda from Star Wars Saga is a perfect example of how a unique speech pattern can make a supporting character memorable. And 3, they must represent something. Secondary characters can represent different aspects of your story. For example, one can represent strength, while another represents forgiveness. The action of your secondary characters and their interactions with the protagonist will enrich your stories with incredible moments that represent essential aspects of the plot. Suppose a character fails to help the protagonist at an early stage in the story, but redeems themselves by helping our hero in the final moments. In that case, it will make readers relate to redemption and how it's possible to achieve your goals, even if we sometimes fail. So why are supporting characters essential to your story? The stories are not based only on main characters and protagonists. They all need supporting characters to enrich the story and give more interest to the plot. The supporting characters can take your story to higher levels. Even sometimes these characters become more loved than the protagonists.
Doug! I was hiding under your porch because I love you. Can I stay?
Can you stay? Well, you're my dog, aren't you? And I'm your master.
You are my master? Oh boy! Oh boy!
Good boy, Doug. You're a good boy.
The importance of supporting characters is not only to enrich the world of your story, though. They also help develop your writing skills. As a writer, you must master the creation of deep, complex, and interesting characters. So writing supporting characters is an excellent practice to improve your skills. Remember that the deeper and more unique your characters are, the better that they will connect with your readers. And everyone wants to read about unusual characters, innovative, and above all else, unique. When it comes to writing secondary characters, you have more creative freedom than with your protagonists. And do you know why? It's because readers are interested in the development of the characters and how they overcome the obstacles that the plot throws at them. So don't be afraid to try new things when it comes to supporting characters. If you have an idea in mind but it seems too crazy for your protagonist, you can apply it to your secondary character and thus make it much more interesting for your readers. Remember that you have more creative freedom with these characters because they are not restricted by the canons and the resources that the plot gives the protagonist. And now that you know the importance of supporting characters in your story, let's go ahead and move on to the next important topic, which is how do you actually write good supporting characters? So writing good supporting characters can be a challenge, especially if you are a novice writer. But don't worry, I'm going to go ahead and give you the key so you can write exceptional supporting characters that your readers will never forget. So the first important note here is supporting characters must be based on their life experiences. Like you, your characters feel, suffer, love, have goals, and more. That is why it's essential to endow them with a character defined by their life events. And if you don't tell the past of your supporting characters in your story, it doesn't mean they don't have one. When you sketch your supporting characters, make sure their personality results from what these characters have experienced. If they interact with your protagonist, make these events important enough to influence their personalities. And 2, don't saturate your story with too many characters. Avoid creating too many secondary characters. Even though you feel like you're helping, it will ultimately negatively affect your story. If you have many secondary characters, it will be impossible to develop them well. And if you focus on just a few supporting characters, then you will have the time to get them to shine and be able to produce excellent story development. And 3, nothing should be random. Everything that the supporting characters do, from their actions to their dialogues, must have a reason. Nothing is more damaging to a story than having a bunch of unmotivated characters interacting with your protagonist. Make the words and actions of your supporting characters have a reason. Why do they act that way? Why do they talk like that? These are questions you should be able to answer before writing your story. And 4, your supporting character should be interesting. The characters, like the people, are not perfect, but it's thanks to those imperfections that people become interesting. Your supporting characters don't have to be perfect, but they have to be interesting. An excellent example of this is Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, a grumpy, violent, and bitter man, but very interesting. His story with the great whale had us all reading page after page to find out more about him. And 5, choose wisely the name of your supporting characters. Giving your supporting characters proper names is very important. The names are usually related to their nationality, gender, and preferences. And if you give them names that differentiate them, readers will be able to distinguish them better from your protagonists. In the Star Wars saga, Luke Skywalker is the protagonist, while the secondary characters have names like Chewbacca, Han Solo, Obi-Wan. And this way, the public has no problem differentiating them from Luke. We know that writing good supporting characters can be complicated, but if you put these tips into practice, not only will you be able to write supporting characters that your readers won't forget, you'll also improve your writing skills. And if you still have trouble writing good supporting characters, then ask yourself this: are the personalities of my supporting characters shaped by the events in their lives? Does my story have the right number of supporting characters? Are the actions of supporting characters justified? Are my supporting characters interesting enough? Do my supporting characters have names that differentiate them from my protagonists? Now let's go ahead and check out some examples of excellent supporting characters that we've seen on film from books and screenplays that have been adapted to film. We have selected 3 supporting characters that best meet the necessary characteristics to be supporting characters worth remembering. Everyone loves underdogs. That's a reason Neville Longbottom surprised all his fans with development that lasted 8 movies. The result, it was totally worth it.
Harry's gone. Stand down, Neville. People die every day. Friends. Family. Yeah. We lost Harry tonight. But he's still with us. In here. So's Fred. Remus. Tonks. All of them. They didn't die in vain. But you will. Because you're wrong. Harry's heart did beat for us. For all of us. It's not over.
The next supporting character gathers all the credentials to be recognized by everyone. And that's why Yoda and his speech pattern has made everyone want to speak like this Jedi Master.
I can't. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Who said supporting characters couldn't steal the show? Quicksilver from the modern X-Men trilogy is a perfect example that a well-built supporting character can shine through and even outshine the leads. And there we have it. If you put into practice what you've learned today, you'll be able to write excellent supporting characters that your readers will never forget. And remember that if you have any doubts or questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below, and we'll go ahead and do our best to answer them. And I wish you the best in your writing journey and getting those great stories out of you. Cheers.